Revolutionary greetings. Haki Kweli Shakur coming at you again. The end of 2015, last topic of the year. And this topic is very, very, very important because I feel like it's taking me towards the next step, and the continual struggle that we continue to face here in the hills of North America as new African people. This is December 2015. It's been 150 years since our ancestors been freed out of physical slavery. And I always tell my peoples out there, I feel like this is a pivotal point because 150 years wasn't that long ago. Plus, if you want to add all the, discrimination and, tactics and strategies that they used to hold us back, during the black slave codes, black laws, Jim Crow. I mean, everything in the book, man, is warfare, and technically that'll take it to like 50 years. So, 150 years, man, pivotal point, man. Make sure y'all give homage to your ancestors, man. Pay homage to all the ancestors out there who sacrificed their lives, man, who went through that atrocity of the Ma'afa, the slave trade, that's still going on here today in 2015 for new African people in America and African people globally. In the diaspora and on the continent, the Ma'afa continues. We're still going through it, but this is pivotal because in the next 150 years, man, what we gonna be looking like? Because I feel like we haven't accomplished much, as far as liberating ourselves, gaining independence, gaining political power as a people, gaining land, the most important thing of it all, gaining land. We're still going through the same thing our ancestors going through. So, what our future generations going to go through, man. So it's time for us to really, up this intensity on our, struggle. It's time to intensify it. It's time to really, 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 from 2016 and forward, man, we really got to start putting down some real strategic things down on our enemy, man, to, gain all the things that we need to gain to start to be able to take care of ourselves, man. Self-determination, independence, man, that's the mission. One goal, one destiny, you feel me? So, do your rituals, do your salutations, pay homage before this year is over, because the ancestors do, work off of that energy and that love that we show them, because, I always think about wondering what our ancestors thinking about our struggle right now, man. And to be honest with you, I think they're highly disappointed at a lot of us because we're still just talking. We're not struggling forward like we're supposed to be. We're still at a standstill. It's a certain standstill that we at. That the enemy don't take us seriously. That's where we at with it. I feel like they're not taking us seriously. So, for all the elders and the OGs who still struggling, and all our new African political prisoners behind the wall, man. Salute to all those, man. So people my age and younger, we got to step up. It's time, man. Our elders are passing away. Some of our elders are still sitting in the pen. Our ancestors in them graveyards all across the South, they're not very happy with us, man. So we got to step this and intensify this, struggle, man. That's the name of this video. Conversation Reparations 2016. We got to get it cracking. You feel me? So this video is basically on the struggle of reparations, man, because a lot of our people get the reparations struggle twisted. A lot of people, always complaining about the reparations struggle, saying that we're not going to never get reparations, we're never going to get this, we're never going to get that. You know what I mean? So this is just a little video to educate our people on the struggle of reparations, because reparations goes with the black liberation struggle of new African people and African people, so it's very important, because it's we got to get back what our ancestors are owed, to be able to fix our problems here in North America and on the continent. We must always struggle for that, because we can't let our ancestors die in vain. And that's just the way it is. We can't let our ancestors die in vain. We got to get what they took from our ancestors and what's owed in order to fix our damages as a people here today. See, a lot of people think reparations is just about cash. No, it's not. It's not just about receiving cash. It's about making those who's accountable for our Holocaust accountable, and also us as new African people here today, for us to hold ourselves accountable in order to get our people right. And the most important thing that we got to get right with our people is mentally. See, a lot of our people don't talk about mental health. You feel me? So, you know, we're damaged people. We're hurt people. We done been through a war, man. And we still going through this war. You see it every day. New African teenagers, women and men getting shot down every day by the police, the terrorists. So, you know, we owe reparations, man. We got to collect that. You feel me? And let me just hop on straight into it, man. What is reparations about? Reparations is about healing and repairing ourselves. Reparation doesn't have to be done all at one time. It could be implemented over decades, even centuries, since the crime that took place on our ancestors took place over centuries. You feel me? So, reparations. What is reparations? Reparations is compensation. Basically, being compensated. Why? Because of abuse, a victimization, a dehumanizing act or murder that has been taking place on a national and race of people. That's what compensation. That's what the compensation part means. It means getting compensated for what a nation and a race of people have went through and suffered by the hands of another people and a race of people. You feel me? So that's what reparations basically is, compensation. And let me get into compensation. Compensation not necessarily means cash, like I said at first. That's just one aspect and one way of compensation. Compensation can be in the form of land, preferences, grants, vouchers, opportunities, or anything of value to any nation of people who's been victimized, terrorized, genocided, holocausted, suffered a dehumanizing treatment, and are damaged and hurt people, physically and mentally. That's what compensation for reparations is. That's what basically what reparations is compensation. Can't get one without the other. That's what it is. You feel me? So that's for all the people out here who get reparations and all that stuff twisted, man. You know, it's not just about cash. Cash is just an aspect. Let me move right on along to the term 40 acres. What is 40 acres? 40 acres was a term that came into effect. 40 acres was land that was divided by the military at the end of the Civil War, in the Civil War. And what 40 acres is 40 acres of plots and titles were issued to the freedmen. The freedmen is our ancestors that were, you know, quote unquote freed out of slavery. And it was written by June 1865 that 40,000 freedmen had been allocated for 400,000 acres of land. General Howard and General Rufus Saxton expanded this to other lands like further west from the south. So this is where the term 40 acres come from. And it started with General T. Sherman, which is the 15 what you call them? All right, I'm starting to think of what I was about to say. Special Field Order 15. That's what I'm trying to say. Special Field Order 15. That is Special Field Order 15 is where the term 40 acres and a mule come from, because General T. Sherman, some slaves were following General T. Sherman, and they followed him out to the sea gals and the sea lands of Georgia, and you know he promised these Africans that they was going to get free land. This is where the term 40 acres come from. So let me just hop on right into the history of the reparation struggle, because many people don't know about the history of reparation struggle and the reparation activists that's been around ever since 1865. And it's also starting off with 1865-67. And it starts off with the Special Field Order. The Special Field Order, General T. Sherman declared a strip of land on the southeast coast for free slaves, 40 acres. Slave reparations, they introduced a slave reparation bill was introduced in the House of Representatives. Instead, they created a Freedmen's Bureau, which is today I would call equivalent to like government assistance. That's all it was. That's what the Freedmen's Bureau was, government assistance. No different than welfare, if you want to, call it that. The Freedmen's Bureau was created as an alternative to reparations to assist slaves. Slaves later on were removed from their homesteads in the land that they had gained and stripped of these lands and stripped of these benefits by President Andrew Johnson. And at this time and period, that's when one of our first new African presidents, which is Tunis G. Campbell, was trying to set up a nation on the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, set up a nation. And that foiled due to what President Andrew Johnson and all of them did by taking back what they had gave our ancestors, man. So a lot of land was lost in this period behind this, and they never was paid or compensated for it. Moving right along. In 1890, another reparation activist was Henry M. Turner. He campaigned for reparations and repatriation. He said that USG should pay $40 billion for 200 years of slave labor, which, never happened, So do your research on Henry M. Turner, 1890 to 1893. I'm going to skip over him because he wasn't really relevant in the reparations struggle because he was on some other stuff. But you can look him up if you want to. It's William Vaughn. This was a European from Alabama who tried to pull some kind of crazy stuff like trying to profit off our ancestors' labor. 1897, the great Callie House. Look her up, man, because she was one of the first reparations activists, man. Callie House founded the National Ex-Slave Mutual Relief Bounty and Pension Association to organize for reparations and demand the USG to provide pensions for aged individuals, spouses, caregivers, and heirs to the surviving people of the ancestors who was enslaved. It lasted about 10 years. The government went after her for mail fraud, and eventually her whole reparations movement was killed after that. Moving right along to the next one, Sojourner Truth. A lot of people don't know that Sojourner Truth was a reparation activist. Sojourner Truth called for the USG government to hand over land out in the West and to be compensated for slave labor from the USG government. A lot of y'all probably don't know about that. 1915, Cornelius Jones and Callie House again sued the USG government for reparations, saying that it profited from enslaved labor through federal taxes on cotton. Since the ancestors were never paid, he calculated that it was $69 billion of debt that's owed to our ancestors for labor. He lost this lawsuit eventually. Moving right along. 1960, Elijah Muhammad argued for human rights and for the USG obligation to establish a separate territory of land, fertile land, mineral land, enriched land, and supply the descendants of slaves for 20 to 25 years until they could produce and supply all their needs on their own. Elijah Muhammad. 1963, Queen Mother Moore and the Reparations Committee of Descendants of U.S. Slaves. This is somebody that I look up to, and she's a new African national and was a Garveyite. She delivered petitions to Kennedy and to the United Nations twice, charging them with genocide and asking for reparations for the descendants of slaves. In 1963, Detroit activist Ray Jenkins, and he organized and created the Slave Labor Annuity Pay Organization. Excuse me. He distributed leaflets, speeches, letters to black orgs, and talked to John Conyers into introducing a bill to study to Congress. You know what I'm saying? That's what Ray Jenkins did. He was another great reparation activist. Moving right along. Hold on, make sure I ain't skipping that. Yeah, I ain't skipping that. Moving right along. And matter of fact, the Ray Jenkins and the John Conyers bill, the 40 HR bill, is still in effect today, still active. 1992, Ida Hakeem created an organization called Cure for Reparations to inform white America that they need to do justice through reparations. This is what he created, was the Cure organization for reparations, which, you know, was educating and forcing the issue on white Americans to see that they need to do right by us and our ancestors through reparations. 2000, Randall Robinson put out the book called The Debt and What America Owes Blacks. It was published in the year 2000. And also, attorney Charles Ogletree forms the Reparation Coordinating Committee with black lawyers Johnny Cochran and several other black lawyers seeking reparations for victims of slavery and a century-long racial discrimination which followed slavery. And a lot of people have, you know, got a little conspiracy theories behind Johnny Cochran death. A lot of people think Johnny Cochran may have been killed behind that. So do your research on that. 2001, December 12th, the December, I think it's the December 12th or the December 13th movement, led by Viola Plummer, attorney Roger, I think it says Wackerham, a National Black United Front, 300-member delegation, the Dunbar 400, look that up, lobby for reparations for African people on the continent and African people in the diaspora, the December 12th movement. 2002, DeAndrea Farmer, a New York advocate, filed a class act lawsuit against several major corporations for profiting from slavery and violating human rights laws. It eventually was moved to Chicago federal court. Viola Plummer, Dr. Conrad Worrell, the Millions for Reparations rally was also established for reparations in D.C. It was the first reparation rally to ever be held in D.C. Let me go back. I skipped some. 1968, the Malcolm X Society, led by Imari Obadeli, organized the Republic of New Africa, demanding land, territory, and 5 states of the South, and $400 billion in slavery for damages. 1969, another great man right here, James Foreman of SNCC, walked into a white church in New York, demanded and started reading the Black Manifesto. Do your research on the Black Manifesto. Challenging white churches, charging white churches and synagogues with complicity in slavery and racial oppression, demanding $500 million in reparations. James Foreman of SNCC. 1987, Imari Obadeli and the NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations, was founded. Chapters grew in strength and numbers, still active today for reparations and demands. Dorothy Lewis of the Black Reparation Commission was also co-chair of the NCOBRA, which is still active today. 1988, Silas Muhammad founds the Laws Foundation of Islam and gathered a group of attorneys under the banner called the National Coalition for Reparations to examine human rights and delivered petitions to the UN for reparations. In 1995, he founded the All for Reparation and Emancipations movement and became a UN NGO, speaking on behalf of descendants of enslaved Africans. Silas Muhammad. 1989, I just spoke on him. John Conyers introduced the federal study of slavery to the commission. He introduced the federal study of slavery, the commission, that's what it's called, the study of reparations, a proposal for African Americans Act, which is called, aka the HR 40. Go look that up. That's all this stuff is on the computer. You can't miss it, man. This is why we must keep this struggle going, man. 2006. The December 13th, the U.S. Court of Appeals in Chicago reversed an early ruling in the corporations lawsuit, upheld fraud, that upheld fraud claims against 15 major U.S. banks, insurers, and transportation companies that concealed their slave trading history from consumers. Judge Richard Posner stated that selling of goods who has his company, the seller of goods who has his company's slave trading history because he's afraid to lose customers guilty of fraud and other claims sought recovery of past profits made from slave trading were dismissed in his ruling. So this cat upheld the ruling against 15 major U.S. banks, insurers, and transportation companies. They won the lawsuit. He reversed the lawsuit. So that right there is criminal. You see what I'm saying? December 13th, 2006. Go look that up. The U.S. Court decision of appeals in Chicago on reparations, man. 2014, which you all should know about just by now, which is the Ta-Nehisi quotes, 250 years of slavery, 90 years of Jim Crow, 60 years of separate but equal, 35 years of racist houses policy report. And gentrification is nothing but domestic colonialism, which continues in redlining. Go look that up. He has a book out on that, if I'm not mistaken. His name is Ta-Nehisi Coates. If you look up, research reparations and all that, his name is going to pop up. You can't miss it. And like I said at the tail end of that, what we're suffering through today, which is gentrification. Gentrification is nothing but domestic colonialism, an extension of, segregation, and that's modern day neo-slavery, because what they're doing is removing us out of communities and bunching us back up into communities, and we're not benefiting off that, man. That's why a lot of this violence taking place, because they gentrifying a lot of our people. That's going on right here in Richmond, Virginia today. So do your research on that, man. That was just a quick rundown on the history of reparations and the struggle of reparations. We must always fight for reparations. It's a part of the struggle. It's part of the black liberation movements. It's a part of the black liberation struggle, period. Conversation Reparations 2016, man. Let's get it, man. We got to start thinking about our future generations, man. A lot of people always say don't think ahead, man, but we got to think ahead on this situation, man, because we gotta start initiating the get down, man, of the struggle, man. And reparations is a part of that, man. A lot of our people out here are not even educated, don't even realize that this government owe you land. That's right. This government owes you land due to your ancestors. You are owed land. You are owed money. New African people, black people in America, you are owed money and land. So let's get this struggle going. This is what we should be struggling for. If you trace all throughout our history, man, we are people that did things on our own. When we was capable of doing things on our own, we prospered. That's self-determination, man. And I'm going to sign off right here, man. Haki Kweli Shakur, the seed of Gabriel Prosser. Shout out to the Shakur tribe. Shout out to the August 3rd Communist Organization, Soldiers of the People. Man, shout out everybody, man. Free the land, Pomoja, Tuta Shinda, together we will win. Vito Wawawa 2, People's War, man. Let's get it, man. Conversation Reparations, man. Salute.